From deep in the heart of Central Texas, it's the Best of the Outdoors podcast with Dustin Vaughn Warnke. Brought to you by Grim Reaper Broadheads. Watch 'em drop. Gold Tip, the toughest arrow you'll ever shoot. Gilly Monster Outdoors and Vapor Trail Outdoors. World-class hunting and fishing products. Striper Express with Bill and Chris Carey on Lake Texoma. Vineyard Max Deer Products and Warnke Enterprises, your full stack digital and media production marketing agency with a specialty in the outdoors. Welcome to our podcast. Thank you so much for joining us today, and this is kind of the official reboot, if you will. My name is Dustin Vaughn Warnke, your host. This podcast, if you want to go back in time, goes back to about 2015 when I did a initial show with Bill Henson, Prowler Bill, as we call him, from the TV show I still work with called Hogger Boys now. It used to be Mac and Prowler back in the day, and that was basically a show on how to start a hunting show, how to start a TV show, and because him and I have been at that for a long time. I took kind of a hiatus from the podcast when I left the magazine as the associate publisher. The magazine I'm talking about is Texas Fish and Game. Basically left the industry for about, 4 years or so, and explored some other things to kind of build my marketing acumen. Was a marketing director in a number of different companies inside and outside of the industry, the outdoor industry rather. And anyway, I recently got invited to a podcast summit. I've got a lot of content to share from that. And then also, the first episode I wanted to make was all about one of my heroes in conservation and heroes in the outdoor world, and that is my associate. I was the associate publisher when he was, and still is, the editor-in-chief of Texas Fish and Game magazine. So this podcast used to be kind of part of the Texas Fish and Game magazine umbrella. In a way it still is, because I'm interviewing a lot of people associated with that magazine, and the first one's going to be Chester Moore. Chester Moore is, currently, and I guess for the past, 11, 12 years, the editor-in-chief Texas Fish and Game magazine, which is a bi-monthly magazine, comes out, every 2 months and 6 months a year. And I was the associate publisher there, contributing editor, digital columnist. I did so many things there before departing there and kind of leaving the industry for a while. But I'm back full-time now with my marketing agency, which specializes in the outdoor and other businesses as well, which is Warnke Enterprises. The website for that is businesswithdustin.com. You guys know who supports me and who supported me in this industry for a while if you've listened to the show in the past. But the previous iteration of this podcast, which is just kind of a continuation of that, is with what was kind of like under the Texas Fish and Game umbrella when it rebooted in 2016 after I started in 2015, and that ended at the end of 2019. Prior to this episode, 2 other episodes kind of in the serial lineup of this podcast was an interview with Luke Clayton, and then another interview, kind of 2 segments that I did with him on his radio show, which I produce. And produce his radio show, terrestrial radio, on about 30 different radio stations across kind of the south part of the United States, which turns into a podcast as well. It can be heard anywhere. Outdoors podcasts category, you can kind of look on Carbon TV or just on your favorite podcast player. It's called Catfish Radio with Luke Clayton and friends. Then also, I picked up, and this kind of got me back into really doing this full swing, one of my outdoor conservation heroes as well, Larry Wassoon, with DSC's Campfires with Larry Wassoon, very popular podcast, obviously a legend in the industry, Larry. I've got a podcast coming up with him that I recorded kind of for both of my shows. I have another podcast, if you're into personal growth, spiritual development, that kind of stuff, called The Empowered Life with Dustin Vaughn Warnke. You can check that out on any major podcast player or over there at dustinspodcast.com. That's kind of the hub for the show. Of course, you don't have to listen there. You can listen anywhere on any of your podcast apps like you're hearing this one. But it's called The Empowered Life with Dustin Vaughn Warnke. Same dude, just a different show. It's great to be back, man. I missed you guys. I missed the community of support that I had in the industry. I kind of felt a calling back through a series of events that brought me back into going full-time after, I guess, 17 or 18 years of doing Warnke Enterprises part-time, which is my full-stack marketing agency that I've run, kind of part-time while having a full-time job. I decided to take the plunge after an accident that I had last May, and it kind of knocked me out of what I was doing with the company I was with. I was a marketing director. I got let go from the marketing director position for this roofing company, and went to go back to work for another roofing company I work with, kind of part-time, and then decided, what the heck, I'm going to go for it. So if you need anything with, websites, marketing, advertising, media production, I do Larry's show and another show for Luke, and then another show for Herman Brune called The Lost Rider. That's another one to check out. It's RIDER, The Lost Rider podcast with Herman Brune. That is also available on all major podcast platforms, and there should be some new shows coming out shortly for that too at the time I'm recording this. But to kick things off, we're going to talk to Chester Moore, and this goes back to a podcast summit that I went to where I recorded like 15 shows that are going to drip out here in the coming weeks. And Chester is one of my heroes of conservation. He has a daughter about this a little bit older than my son, Jackson. Jackson's 15 years old now. If you guys remember me talking about him in the past, back when I've recorded the show, he's kind of my legacy, as far as a person that I'm passing the outdoors on to. Him and I have had a lot of great hunting and fishing experiences over the last few years, and I'm going to share some interviews kind of with him as well. About, coming up in a world where it's full of technology, full of distractions and that kind of stuff, and how the outdoors kind of heals us. And that's the one thing I noticed when I was at this podcast summit, which is held down in Garwood at a lodge called the Pintail Hunting Lodge. I never ended up, was scheduled to record an episode with the owner of that, but it is a beautiful lodge. They've got like 3 15-acre lakes that are set up for fly fishing or regular fishing. They're not stock ponds. Like, this is a hunting lodge where you go duck hunting and clay shooting. They've got a 5-round station, all that other stuff, and I decided I would fish instead of shooting clays because I caught about the same amount of fish as I would have hit with. I'm not the best wing shot, as you guys may remember, but it's great to be back. Chester's been up to a lot of great things, has a great thing coming up later this year when I'm recording this here in 2025 with the reboot of this podcast, and it's a documentary about great white sharks that is going to kind of coincide with the anniversary of the release of Jaws, which has been 50 years ago. Can you guys believe we all get old so fast? Time just flies. And so 50-year anniversary. Chester has a conservation piece about great white sharks. I took Jackson to the TOWA conference, which is the Texas Outdoor Writers Association, soon to be the Texas Outdoor Media Association, because, it's not just about writing anymore, especially with the digital age. We got podcasts, we got, films, videos, all that other stuff. So I'm working on a bunch of projects for that, and then kind of the weekly podcast for Larry and Luke and Herman, and then myself, my own 2 podcasts. So if you need anything as far as tech advisement, you can't get your phone to work right, need a website, need a webmaster to kind of manage what you've got out there in the digital space. I've been at this for almost 30 years when it comes to building websites since the late 90s. Took a break kind of, my early 20s when I started learning how to hunt and everything like that. But got back into it in 2006 with my buddy Danny Berry. I'd like to have him on the show at some point too. But I've got some good stuff coming, man. And I've been producing all these podcasts, and I said, what the heck, I'm rebooting this one, and I'm starting a new one. So I started The Empowered Life, and then I also knocked out and started a new, rebooted this one, as well as doing the production for the other one. So you'll hear some clips from some of the other shows that I work with as part of kind of the new format of how we're doing this. Still an interview format, still mainly 2 people. I'm going to rebroadcast some stuff that was very popular in the past, like Cal Gonzalez and Chester Moore and I did a show at iCast one time that was called Total Chaos, and it was just kind of like live. We broadcasted on Facebook. It was nuts. We also did a show at the Houston Fishing Show, recorded a podcast there, and then Cal passed away from complications. He was our saltwater editor at the magazine, the Texas Fish and Game, and he passed away with some diabetic complications with his health, and that was, I think, around 2000 or 2001. Anyway, Chester wrote a great column about him, kind of his final column that he wanted published in the magazine recently, and I'll miss him. He was one of the best people I've ever known in my life. Period. As far as fishermen or anything else. Cal Gonzalez, God rest your soul. If you're listening up there, wherever up there is, I just want to thank you for inspiring me to keep going and take charge of my own health. I'm a diabetic as well, and I understand. His story and what he went through, the complications, helped me kind of watch my blood sugar and that kind of stuff a little bit more. So, anyway, without further ado, Chester Moore, kind of an update on some of the stuff that he's doing. We met up at and fished together for the first time ever. I mean, in all the years I've worked for Chester and under Chester as editor-in-chief, and then me as associate publisher my last year at the magazine in 2019 before I left the industry. And one of my heroes of conservation. And just an incredible interview. All right, here we go. Thank you guys so much again for watching, reading, and listening. If you want to learn anything about me, about the stuff that I do in the outdoor industry, dustinsprojects.com. I'll mention this at the end of the show too, but the dustinsprojects.com, I've got a link tree on there. It's got a ton of stuff from this event that we were at, which was called the Hunt Fish Podcast, where I recorded this. This is back in like late March of here in 2025. Chester was my last interview. We just kind of did a little impromptu interview at the end of the last night we were there. They showcased Chester's always been big about wild sheep. I've never understood why. Now I do. There's a film that recently released in late April of this year, which is all about wild sheep. The Wild Sheep Foundation Sheep Show. Wild Sheep Foundation was one of the main sponsors of this podcast, and this film is incredible. If you want to watch this, go to my link tree, dustinsprojects.com or businesswithdustin.com. That's my agency website for Warnke Enterprises. Both have the link tree, and you'll just scroll down. It's called Resilience in the Rocks. And Chester was part of this. You'll hear his voice on it. It's one of the best outdoor film documentaries I've ever watched in my life. It is absolutely incredible. And not just because I come from the exotic world, as a lot of you guys know, I interviewed Froilan, which is one of the guys that is the main wildlife biologist who lives out in Alpine, Texas, West Texas, who is in charge of the desert bighorn program, and he's been doing that, I think, for about 15 years or so. So I've got an interview coming with him in the future, and I basically was just kind of playing chess with him about, if we do this, he would always move the chess piece kind of close to me, so to speak, proverbially speaking. And so I learned a lot about exotics and the fact that, I thought I knew everything about exotics, but I didn't realize that one of the things Chester and I'll talk about is MOV, which is one of the, that's kind of the slang or the shortened term for kind of a pneumonia virus that aoudad naturally carry that they pass on to wild sheep. And so we have the last of the mountains was Elephant Mountain, and that was clean, that didn't have this infection with desert bighorns caused by aoudad. And so it really opened my eyes. The film that I'm mentioning, which is Resilience in the Rocks from the Texas Bighorn Society, kind of heads up that video. We'll talk about that a little bit in this show, but it is just so cool the way they did the cinematic part of this film as kind of a video guy and a TV guy. I really, really liked it. So anyway, without further ado, here's Chester Moore. We'll be back with you at the end of this show to give you guys some more information. And thank you so much for listening to the reboot of the Best of the Outdoors podcast. God bless you all. Here we go. It's good to be back in the industry. It's good to be back on this podcast, which I'll probably air on both podcasts, The Best of the Outdoors and The Empowered Life with Dustin Von Warnke, which you can find both on your favorite podcast player anywhere. Chester, what have you been up to? And goodness, I guess the last 4 years since we've had an interview together, because I think the last time was before COVID, 2019.
Yeah, well, asking me what I've been up to is kind of a loaded question.
I know it is.
There's been a lot. Being a dad and being a husband.
Yeah.
And
how old is Faith now?
She's 18.
Oh my gosh.
And tonight
she grew up so fast, man.
I know. Tonight I got great news about her.
Okay, talk to me.
She won in this mega youth competition thing, a regional. She won for 3 of her photos, her wildlife photos.
Oh my God.
She got superior ratings, invitation to nationals for digital, mobile, and print film.
Wow.
And all of them are wildlife photos. And last year she got for 2, and she won the merit award and a scholarship last year for a mountain goat photo.
okay, this is bringing back like memories of the way it felt when I got my first high school essay award, which led to a scholarship from the band boosters at the time.
Yeah, she was big.
And like that's so exciting to hear from her, like multiple things, multiple awards and stuff.
She has a good eye for it. The favorite part for her would be that we get to go to some cool places, shoot some cool animals too.
Sure,
you know.
sure.
So, but she has a good eye for it, and she loves it. And
so that's something she's really picked up is the photography, right?
Yeah, and it's been in about the last year and a half.
Because I was about to say when you and I were really close to each other, like working together and stuff a lot. Like she hadn't really like fully picked it up, but she was like what I guess
she was like 10
back then.
Yeah. So she was just doing regular kid stuff, but she's been around it her whole life.
I know, and I'm saying with a dad that influenced her like you have, not just with photography but conservation and so many other things that you stand for with really your brand of the wildlife journalist, and that's one thing I'd love to watch evolve is the film stuff that we watched about you and that kind of stuff, but also like how you put in our conversation tonight, family first. It was all about how proud you were about Faith, and I think that's great.
Oh man, it's just it's like this. Accolades are great. I appreciate them. Like I was privileged to win an award, be given an award tonight, and an Impact Award from Whitefish Pocket. I love that. It's great. It's great mile markers. You're doing something right. It's an honor. But I don't take it seriously in the terms of how I view myself. Yeah. It's like if Faith and Lisa Moore think I'm okay, then I'm okay. Yeah. And that's kind of the way I try to look at it, because it's easy to get accolades and stuff and then be like all crazy. Because it's funny, man. I've met people who have like 1/50th the accolades.
Yeah.
In my profession, there are a few people that have the egos the size of the state of Texas.
Yeah.
And I always thought it was funny, I was like, really? Come on, dude. You write a newspaper from some weekly in McAllen, which is great. That's where I started in a weekly newspaper.
Yeah, I know.
But don't get mad at me because I don't know who you are. I had someone one time get mad at me.
Because they didn't recognize?
Because I didn't recognize them.
Don't you know who I am, Chester?
That's what they were telling me.
That's almost like an entitled, you hear stories about people walking around in Hollywood that are supposed to be A-list celebrities that are like, don't you know who that's what I feel like that attitude's kind of like.
Yeah, so I had that happen one time and I was like, I can't believe this is actually happening. I found out what I was like, dude, give me a freaking break. I mean, you're not the Beatles. You're not Elvis Presley or Michael Jackson, some mega celebrity the world knows. You're, come on. It's just funny. And you could easily go into well, I've done this, and this, and that. But I kind of look at it like, don't worry about it.
I mean, here I sit in front of, what was your Field of Stream award? Because I thought that was so impressive.
Hero of Conservation
award winner. In so many awards I can't even count. We're talking hundreds of writing awards here, and this man's still humble. This man still has a heart for God. This man still has a heart for Christ, kids, and critters, as I used to listen to on your radio show all the time, and even when I wasn't on your radio show, and I would listen to it through the regular, through iHeartRap or whatever. But 25 years, you've done terrestrial radio.
I did it for 25 years. I just quit, and I quit for a very specific reason. You got to realize in media, relationships don't last forever. Yeah.
I've noticed that. Yeah.
And so I had more outdoors radio, which is also podcast. Mm-hmm. I had Higher Calling Wildlife, and then I had Dark Outdoors. And I could only do Dark Outdoors seasonally because it's very intensive investigations.
Right. And I mean, they're almost serious going on.
Yeah, man. And I'm like, Dark Outdoors is growing a lot. And I've already gotten speaking engagements out of it that are paying, and the things I'm sort of building toward. And I went, you know what? I'm gonna take this radio thing and tell the station, thank you for 25 amazing years. I'm so grateful, but I don't have ownership of that. That was just there was no growth space.
You were telling me that earlier.
And I'm in the outdoors business to make a living. Mm-hmm. So I'm just gonna go do this. And now
you're kind of landlocked though with
So Dark Outdoors and plus Dark Outdoors is everything I dig is in that show.
Oh, I know. That's the thing. And you're so passionate about. I used to think when that first came out, when you first did that, I was sitting there going, "How niche? How crazy segmented is that population?" And then I realized, holy crap! I've seen things. Other people I know have seen things
that don't make sense out there and should, like what's your slogan for that again?
Pray, prepare, and pack heat.
And I mean, that's bold.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it's very engaging for a guy like me in marketing. I think that's a darn good slogan. Like, I really think that's...
There will be an R after it pretty soon. There already is an R after Dark Outdoors. But it's...
So your trademark, I see.
Dark Outdoors is trademarked already, but registered. And I love it because it's mysterious, it's investigative journalism, it's wildlife, it's hunting, fishing, camping. It's like cryptozoology. It's anything. It's either campfire tales or terrifying tales, cautionary tales, and it's all real. And it's got like metal music in it for the intros and outros.
Yeah, I was listening to some.
So it's earlier. It's stuff I wrote years ago for my band Drac, and those are pieces of Drac songs.
Oh my gosh, I didn't realize they were your own original.
It's my stuff. Yeah, it's
my
stuff.
That's cool.
And so it's a fun, it's a passion, and it's making a difference because it's all about raising awareness and safety and stuff.
Yes.
And
especially among some of the issues that we talked about too, on
like true crime type stuff.
Like really, yeah. But also like things that we don't think about and ways to protect ourselves from them. Okay?
Yeah.
So I have somebody very close to my life that has a fear of a mass shooting. And so basically his worry is that it's going to be a situation that's, he's going to be in that he can't get himself out of. That kind of stuff. And I don't know how, but I was thinking, okay, how about like the reason why I back into a parking space instead of pulling into it? You know what I'm saying? Like just
that's my Dark Outdoors
combat parking.
That's my first Dark Outdoors safety protocol. Is when you go to a remote place, you turn around and you park in a position to where you have to leave.
Is that officially called combat parking? Because I've heard it referred to that.
I don't know. I call it Dark Outdoors parking.
Well, let's go.
But
that's perfect.
But that came from watching slasher movies when I was a kid.
Of course. I mean, what do you not do? You don't run upstairs.
Yeah.
You don't say, "I'll be right."
Like in the car, they try to back up or something and get stuck in the mud, and then the axe comes through the window. So that's where that came from.
That's exactly where they hide, is where the attacker
and
would
horror is actually tied into Dark Outdoors too. We're gonna do some fun. We're gonna do some fun stuff with that, with like movies that are set in Dark Outdoors place, like bonus content. I'll be interviewing some horror movie celebs and stuff like that as bonus content. But it's a fun project, and it was born out of encounters that I had. In the wild.
You were telling me some of those earlier.
Encounters that I had in the wild, like being chased off the mountain in Northern California by drug runners. Me and my dad back in 2002. And
I would never forget that.
It was insane. And then I did a radio show about it right before the pandemic on More Outdoors. And I just told the story and then opened the phone lines and I couldn't take all the calls.
I bet it was like Christmas lights.
Everybody had a story.
Everybody lit up the board.
And, I had a story. The one that stuck out for me that night was the person who went duck hunting out in Brazoria County South between Galveston and Houston. And they shot a limited teal early, about 8:30 in the morning. They're driving out, and there's a burning body in the middle of the road.
Oh my gosh! Like on their way out, the way they came back in. Yeah. So somebody knew they were there and was sending them a sign.
No, I was pretty sure it was like I'll just call it organized drug crime situation. But can you imagine?
Oh, you're driving up on that, though. I see your point.
Can you imagine being in the outdoors and there's a burning body in the road on your duck lease
in front of you, while you're trying to?
And what if you pulled up and saw it? You think they're going to let you be a witness?
It's too late.
They're going to let you be a witness.
It's scary.
So that's what that show's about. So it's fun stuff. It's part of what I'm doing. I have Higher Calling Wildlife, the podcast as well, which is my conservation deep dive. We're here at the Hunt Fish Podcast Summit, and I interviewed a lot of people about content for there, like my friends in the Wild Sheep Foundation, and we had Pat Murray from CCA on. We also had Sam Cunningham from the Texas Bighorn Society, Furlan Hernandez, Texas Parks and Wildlife. A lot of cool content. Of course, I'm editor-in-chief of Texas Fish and Game, and I'm very blessed to still be doing that.
Over 10 years now that I remember.
It's been longer than that.
About 11 or 13. 13, yeah.
13. And
you've done a great job, man.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
And many compliments on the magazine still, even though I'm not officially full-time with
thank you. And so we do that, and that's a big part of my life. And then I do freelance work, speaking gigs. But my heart is the ministry work I do with kids. Our mission is to bring the redeeming love of Christ to hurting children through wildlife encounters. And we've been doing that, me and Lisa, for 13 years now. And we have a program called Wild Wishes, and that's like if a kid wants their favorite animal, go meet their favorite animal or come to our facility and encounter all of our animals, But
the requirements for them is to going through
hell.
Yeah, situation.
Yeah, it might be
family.
It might be a kid in foster. Yeah. It might be a parental or sibling loss. It might be terminal illness, and we work with a group that brings us trafficking victims.
Yeah. That's deep.
We have 256 kids in the program now, and we'll cross 300 this year. It's an insane year. I mean, we always take off January and February from that. Our facility is always wet and cold in.
Yeah. I've been there.
And then we just kind of decompress, and I have to work out of town a lot that time of year. And we hit March, we've already had kids, and we're going to have a bunch more kids coming in a few. We've got 9 kids coming within the next 2 weeks.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So that's Kingdom Zoo.
Yep. Kingdom Zoo Wildlife Center is our facility, and then we have the Wild Wishes program out of that.
Right. That spurs out of that.
Yeah, and then we have Higher Calling Wildlife out of that, which is the expedition part.
Yep.
Which is our 6th year doing work in Colorado. We did work in Yellowstone last year. We're doing the Grand Teton area this year, and Colorado again.
Unbelievable footage, unbelievable film, unbelievable story narrative that you've done in all the films that I watched tonight.
Yeah, we had Yellowstone document.
Yeah, that Yellowstone documentary was just powerful, and just the way that, I've just really taken aback by the quality of everybody that's here. The thing, it goes back to judging character and that kind of stuff. Character and integrity. I think it may be also, and I hate to say, I think it may be also we're a little more matured media people. In a way, I know I'm certainly less matured than you are in that respect because you've been a journalist, and you take a different angle on it. I'm more nuts and bolts, the how-to guy, and whatever with what I write, and I like that about what I write. But really, it's piqued my interest in learning more and what you always ask on your radio show and podcast. What's out there? I mean, what am I not paying attention to and not bringing awareness to in the content I produce in the future that I learned about here? Because this has just been a whole almost like a Pandora's box of issue. And as I'm talking to forgive me, Mr. Hernandez, the Texas Froyline. I didn't want to butcher his name the second time. I had him on earlier before we recorded this, and it's everything I uncovered and would ask him investigatively, whatever. Yep. It was one solution led to another problem. You know what I'm saying? And so I learned things and this is going to be, on the fact that the Texas Parks and Wildlife, the biologists sometimes go up and shoot if there's an overpopulation of aoudad
on state land.
Yeah. And that's the thing. I was just wow. I mean, you guys, and he's well, it's not easy, but. Then I asked him questions about, and I thought you'd really love this, about the exotic population in Texas and how the aoudad are displacing, which I just learned about this. I should have been paying more attention to this. I feel I missed, because you don't even refer to the Barbary as a sheep,
It's not a sheep.
Aoudad, because it's not.
Yeah.
So I made a joke about it being an alien sheep or whatever. They should put bounties for ewes, and you know what I'm saying. But I understand.
Idea.
Yeah, but I was thinking are those the feral hog in the sheep world?
Oh, they absolutely.
And he absolutely couldn't agree more.
No, they're absolutely that.
I just got such a rise out of that.
And in my opinion, it's worse.
Yeah.
And the reason it's worse is one simple thing: there has never been an incident in America, at least, where feral hogs wiped out in a state or territory or come close to wiping out another ungulate.
Oh my gosh.
But
that's deep.
But aoudad through the Mycoplasma pneumoniae have come, they didn't do it, but they've come pretty dang close to taking out the desert bighorn. So it's just an issue. It's an issue I know he told you of management.
Well, and that's a thing, managing, asking landowners to maybe sell off our cull. But the problem is on the other side of that, and this is just a common issue that I could talk openly about. The ewes and the lambs aren't worth anything.
Yeah.
So again, if it pays, it stays. You know what I'm saying? In some weird way, it's kind of that way too.
There's both sides.
There really is.
The door swings both ways, but they're not it's a thing where they're wanting to manage, and people manage it. They know people are going to make money, and that's okay.
Yeah, and they were fine with that. I thought that was interesting.
But keep the our native wildlife around. And
don't let the aoudad displace them by disease, because that's what's happening. And I never understood it that way before.
Yeah.
Where I've been Mr. And I was telling him right on this podcast, I was sitting there going, I was always the one that said, welcome all exotic. And then I find out about this, and I'm embarrassed forever, like being that way, like that charismatic
It's okay, man.
and dramatic about like, I love exotics, and I love, because I sold them for years. I sold millions of dollars worth of exotics.
Look, the genie is way out of the bottle.
The horse is out of the barn. That's the words I use.
But it's just a management situation, and so it has to be dealt with, and I think it's being dealt with. We have very intelligent people behind this.
Yeah.
And so I've got great hope. I got to be at the release. I got to capture at Elephant Mountain for the Wild Sheep Foundation, and I got to be same thing for them up on the mountain shooting photos of the release and getting that first ram. Almost got ran over by a ram. Yeah.
Like barreled.
Well, I was trying to do the cool angle photo down low, and he comes shooting up the trailer, and he kind of skipped over a rock, came away. So this is how I'm going to go, right here.
Exactly. You kind of saw the whole thing fly.
There we go. And then he looked at me. Oh, that's a person, and he went around me. But it was
you
kind of
probably
funny.
scared the crud out of him, man.
It was kind of funny, but it was one of those beautiful moments in my career, And that's one of the things that is important, I think. I know you like to motivate people. You take that very seriously in life, and I give you great honor for that.
Thank you, buddy.
Is that, the further we go along in a career or life, it's like the expectation is that you lose your zeal. The expectation is that there are greater moments are in the past. I'm like, that's absolute garbage. And I believe, because of my faith, that I can go to glory to glory to glory. And I'm believing good, not the struggles don't come, but I believe that good things are happening. That was one of those moments for me. I'm like, dude, I was a little kid clipping pictures of bighorns and putting them in my scrapbook, my dream animals. And when my dad passed away, we found those scrapbooks.
Yeah, you were telling me about
and
that.
And I opened them up, and literally
stuff,
one of them, half the pictures are bighorns and Dall sheep.
Oh my God! I knew you've had a thing for sheep for a long time. As far as the concept, because I've never seen anybody so passionate that I've known personally about wild sheep and wild sheep. All I've known is what I used to do, kind of outfit the desert bighorn hunt in Mexico, in Sonora or whatever, whatever. But at $50,000.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, that's a rich man's animal. But then I brought that whole idea up in front of Gray, Gray Thornton. And he was like, he's like, well, let me tell you something. Like, he just almost took a little bit of an alarm to the rich man sport. Not to just, but like the people that could just afford it or whatever. And Larry's in the room with me. Larry Washoon's in the room.
Yeah.
And dude, and this was great. Like, just seeing them go back and forth about the reasons why follow the money, and the fact that conservation is funded by some of the ultra elite rich hunters and that kind of stuff, and that's nothing to hate on, because what would we do without that money? What I'm saying?
And then on the sheep side, I mean, all those states have drawings that everybody residents can put in for, and all that stuff. Just a limited number of sheep. It's not like whitetail. There's not 27 million of them.
And that's the thing. Being that that's a precious resource, I now see that as a treasure. I didn't understand it before. But now I realize. I was sitting there during the movie, and I was just answering my own question: why sheep? Why wild sheep? And I've had a different look at it, of course, being at selling the domesticated side of sheep in a way, with the Texas dolls and that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And not a moose line.
I call those exotic sheep. So I've kind of created my own term for those.
Well, I used to call them exotic sheep when I started in 2006, and that whole deal was shut down in perpetuity.
I call them exotic sheep because like Texas doll, Hawaiian black, they got mouflon in them. The original roots have mouflon. Yeah. So they're like a created hunting sheep, really.
Yeah, and that's the thing. They all have different colors.
Like they were created, for hunting and stuff like that.
The creator.
Yeah, I do know the creator. So I call them hunting. Texas doll is technically created by the YO, but they were named by other.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. It was called the Snow White sheep at first.
Really?
Yeah.
Wouldn't that be weird to hang on your
Snow White sheep?
Snow, I don't know. I mean, because I'd be kind of like this is the snow, and you'd think like a fairy tale. I don't know.
A much better marketer come up with the name
Texas
doll. But so we have there's proliferation of exotic sheep around the world. Of course, the mouflon's a true wild sheep. A real mouflon is a true wild sheep.
Indeed.
And they're all over the world. They've been taken and released in Hawaii, and taken and released in all kind of places around the world. tiny little guy compared to a bighorn.
Yeah.
And
then you have the Texas bighorn.
And we have the desert bighorn of Texas.
Well, hold on. Because I was trying to talk to Froland about this today. The whole idea with the hybridized, the cross between the Mouflon and that I accidentally bred somehow.
Yeah, that was a Rocky Mountain bighorn.
Rocky Mountain big. That's what I was trying to say. Rocky Mountain bighorn.
Yeah, but those are all filtered around ranches, and they're all hybrids, but they're not in the wild.
Okay, because I understood the story was that they somehow like got together and
Well, they did in Colorado, but they were you can keep a mouflon in a 4-foot fence.
Yeah, no, you're right.
And Rocky Mountain bighorns would jump in the fence. Hey, that little mouflon girl's cute.
Yeah, look.
And breeding them, but they were all taken out. So they're on exotic ranches, and that's
so they're not really being sold anymore. Like as far as
I don't know.
I don't even. I was just wondering if you knew anything about that, but that really has that's hybridized.
That has to me. Here's the deal. All of that stuff has zero to do with wild sheep.
Yeah, you're right.
It's livestock.
I was just trying to understand the concept of how that happened with the desert bighorn and,
Well, I can tell you how stuff's happening now. People are doing it in the freaking lab.
Yeah, you're right. Well, we look back to the Clinton era of, Dolly.
Well, we have,
how ironic that AI system's called Dolly now. I just made that realization at midnight.
There are semen straws everywhere of different stuff, and they're being mixed in a lab, so.
And I don't know.
I always make a clear delineation between the exotic sheep and wild sheep, and because it's a totally different thing.
And that's like a 12-day hunt if you're going to pay $50,000 to go do it. I mean, it can be up to like a 7 to 12-day hunt.
If you go like to, BC and hunt a stone sheep, you're going to places that almost no one goes.
Yeah, it's like the land that's
look, let me tell you something. It's not driving around in a truck in the Texas Hill Country. All right, and it is not sitting in a box blind with a corn feeder. All right, it's just it's a different kind of hunt.
And that's why I respected aoudad hunting so much, because we're typically aoudad until I realized that's an invasive species that's got to be thinned out in numbers.
It is what it is, but it's...
Oh my, I feel so embarrassed but at the same time I didn't know, I was ignorant. And that's what I'm trying to do with releasing these podcasts is like give people a reason to go, okay, I didn't think of it like that before. Because, I was telling Froland, like the whole idea of like what a 30-inch ram hunt for an aoudad is right now. It's like,
they're not a poor man's animal anymore.
No, they're not. And they used to be.
$7,000.
Well, that's what he said. It was $7,000, but no, I've seen them sold for 3 to 5.
Yeah, but this is free ranging is going higher.
Oh, you're right. Well, I did know a guy on LinkedIn one time that was trying to pitch like free range $2,200 like 30-inch, 28 to 30-inch ram hunts, free range in West Texas, and I was like, you're crazy, man.
But a lot of people pitch a lot of things on, all this stuff too. So
I know. But I mean,
it's very carny.
It's very carnival barker. Can I say that?
I'm going to say carny. There's a carny element to some of those online
Go ahead
hunting.
and define carny for me.
Yeah, it's like...
Because I think deer traders are a den of thieves. Okay, I've told you that.
Yeah, no, I'm just talking about like the whole like online underground underbelly of hunting sales online. Where like you have a Craigslist ad somewhere.
Last time I ever do that one.
And they're
about 10 years ago.
Yeah, they're out there, and I've heard numerous horror stories of people who book stuff. It's
like grocery shopping.
Step right up, and it's not really a mermaid. It's it's a fish mounted to a monkey head, or whatever.
It's like something that was created that never existed before.
Yeah, so that's out there, but it's such a. All that stuff it's almost, I hate to say it, man, it's not uniquely to Texas, but it's pretty close to being unique.
Well, I know. I mean, it's kind of like Florida has some issues, that we don't have here.
Yeah, they got exotic, more like the reptile exotics.
Yeah, the reptilian exotics.
I've been fly fishing over there, and I've had like 10.
You ever caught an iguana on the fly fish?
No, I probably could have.
How about like the iguana daiquiri that they came out with Z-Man the year that I was there, because the iguana daiquiri place was down the road, and they mixed two of them together, and they basically came up with a color of like this like red. I can't even explain it, but they called it a daiquiri color, and I was funny. And it was inspired by the place right down the road.
There were iguanas everywhere down there, but I don't know, man. It's going back to kind of like where we started of like where I'm at, what I'm doing. I have a real heart for the conservation of our resources, and wild sheep on the terrestrial side is my very favorite, the wild sheep stuff. And then on the ocean side, a lot of stuff I'm involved with. And lately it's been great white sharks.
Ah, yes. Tell me more about that.
Yeah, so I was the kid who saw Jaws and wanted to get in the water. I came out somehow a hybrid with Matt Hooper character and Captain Quint, which was Richard Dreyfuss and Robert Shaw. You know, I always say that. And with a little Jacques Cousteau. People will know why I wear a beanie. A beanie's my nod to Jacques Cousteau.
And you told me that once before. And
but I'm not a cool French guy, so mine can't be red. I got to have a metal black one. But so me,
I respect all the bandanas you wear. Like I mean, you were just a general, badass. Like I've always thought that about you.
Well, I am working on with Paul Fuzinski this documentary called Gulf Great Whites: Return of an Icon. It'll be out in June.
Okay.
And it'll be out on the 50th anniversary date of the release of Jaws.
That is so cool that you built the timing in like that.
Yeah, and
that wasn't a mistake, was it?
No,
that was well planned. I could tell. Yeah.
Very much focused. I'm so excited about it. I can't talk too much about what we have on it.
I know.
Only because I don't want people to rip it. No one's had it.
Okay.
It's the first go around at this.
Oh, that's right. You don't want anybody to.
It's the first go around.
Yeah.
And I've already had some people asking some questions.
And you're like, nope.
I'm like, you hadn't busted your tail for this. You can rip it off after it's done.
Exactly. No questions. Ask me no questions. I'll tell you no lies.
Exactly. But it started with a journey of mine 20 years ago. A friend of mine was fishing an oil rig, called me on a satellite phone. Chester, what's the difference between a great white and a Mako's teeth? And a Mako is fairly common in the Gulf. Great whites were not known to be currently in the Gulf 20 years ago. And at a certain size, they're very similar. They're close kin. And I said, a Mako has jangly teeth and a great white has perfect triangles. He goes, I'm looking at a great white right now.
Oh, my goodness.
And that began 20 years of investigations.
So this is an offshore oil rig that this guy, or an offshore rig of some kind?
I think it said it was 56 miles out of Sabine.
Okay. Yeah.
And he names the rig number. So he's interviewed in the documentary.
Oh, wow.
And I was so excited to get him. And I had never, his passion for the sighting, it was like he was still there.
Yeah. it was like he was locked in so deep.
You don't forget seeing something like that.
It's like burned into your brain in a good way.
Yeah, it's powerful, and it's a conservation story, but it's also a story about me in a way.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to show people that, look, I was a nobody kid from a nobody home in a nobody town, right? I was bullied, I was marginalized, went through all that stuff in a very real way. I mean, some people say, no, I was a bully because somebody called you stupid once. I'm like, that was a great day.
Oh, I know. Back in our day.
That was a great day where I went. And kids still go through that kind of stuff too. But here I am, I was dreaming of greatness and dreaming of being able to one day maybe you'd see a great white. And here I am, and you'll see me in a video, and you'll see how close I got to great white.
Unbelievable.
But what was, and it's the grace of God, man. And another thing is, we have kids in our ministry in the documentary. There's a lot out there about like the next generation must take the torch.
Yeah.
They never show the next generation.
I know. That's.
We have 3 of them in our documentary. We have a little boy, and we have an 18-year-old girl and a 15-year-old girl.
Kind of the spectrum.
That are part of our program. And they love the shark lovers. And we tied them in, and we wanted to have them be part of it. And because I don't want to be like, like the rest of the people where it's like, this is our little fun play space where we're going to show be TV stars or internet stars. I'm like, there's a place like that. You're damn right I'm taking credit here. But at the same time, I always say, if a door opens for me in the wildlife world, kids come through it with me pretty quickly.
Yeah.
So wherever I go, like the sheep stuff, they've been very gracious to sheep people. They're incredible people. And we started our Higher Colonial Wildlife Expeditions because one of our young ladies in our Wild Wishes program, we granted her a sea turtle encounter.
Oh, my goodness.
And she has cystic fibrosis. And she was a senior in high school. And after that happened, she said it changed her life. And she wanted to become a conservationist. So we spent several months going over what it meant to be a conservationist and what career options.
So she could understand, yeah.
And we went over, I reached out, I'd taken a young boy with me, a 17-year-old boy with me to photograph bighorns at Elephant Mountain. And Parks and Wildlife took us up top of the mountain. I got some photos for an assignment. He got to take photos.
Did they drop you with a helicopter?
No, we drove up.
Oh, y'all drove up.
Yeah.
Okay. I didn't know how
it was incredible. It was drove up. It's a cool place, a really cool place. And then I reached back out and said, hey guys, I got this girl, and she has cystic fibrosis, and she wants to get involved. Can I take her? Me and my wife come take her. And they go, if you can wait till such and such date, we'll put her on a capture.
Oh my gosh.
So in December 2019, we got to take Rihanna on a capture. And Parks and Wildlife crew were so amazing.
Wow.
Mark Garrett, who was running the site at the time, walks up and goes, your girl's going to do everything today.
Yeah.
She's going to take a blood sample. She'll take a clipping, going to put an ear tag in.
She gets to do all the work. That's so
We thought she'd just get to see it.
But she actually got to be kind of hands-on.
But the best part was, and I have a picture here of it I brought, is when the biggest ram of the whole day came in, he goes, batter up. She got to put the GPS collar on.
Oh my gosh. That's like an ultimate thing when you're doing biology. You know?
Rihanna is now a graduate of Texas Tech with a wildlife management degree, working for the USDA.
How cool.
Yeah, so.
And that's the thing, we hear stories from different people, not always your best friend Dustin here, as far as overcoming triumphs, overcoming in triumphs, and the thing that we've got to be as resilient in those kind of things in the face of adversity of something that is a debilitating disorder or something like that, something that's PTSD even, which I see with the military all the time with Crosswater Outfitters. And yes, I'm due to get back in there. I've been kind of absent for the last year or so, but I really that's where I wanted to ask you, and I know what the answer is going to be to this, because the answer to everybody has been about the same.
Yeah.
Where does the meaning of significance come for Chester Moore's life?
Significance. Very interesting. So, how do I see significance for me in particular?
Where do you find your significance for, let's say, of course, you and I agree in Christ for our human existence, but when it comes to everybody has said the same thing, and I'll just go ahead and give you the answer. It's pretty easy.
The calling of Christ.
The calling of Christ. Yes.
For me, it's the calling of Christ. That's where my significance is.
The higher calling.
The calling of Christ is to set free the captives.
I love that.
Is to heal the sick. Is to visit the prisoner. And that is where the significance is to me, because it's the greatest counterculture on the planet. It's antithetical to what everything else is. Yeah. And it's the only thing that feels right.
Right.
And that's where I find my significance. And, on a broader sense, just remembering that this Chester Moore wildlife guy, whatever, that's cool, but I'm also Faith Moore's dad, and I'm Lisa Moore's husband, and that's where I try.
That's who you are is more your identity of just what you do.
Yeah, something like I'm like a walking freaking conundrum, dude. I'm all kind of crazy stuff.
Well, I am too, and that's the thing. A lot of people, I guess, are that have listened to either of my shows for a while have learned about me is that I'm not sitting here, acting like I have all the answers. I'm here to help us, inspire us to kind of walk through life storms together or whatever we face, because I've been through a living hell, and coming out of that is just with all that I went through and everything, I always need hope, so I always try to give away hope. We all need hope.
Sure, man. And that's the ticket, and that was, someone asked me a few years back, okay, what's the most powerful thing that Christ brought into your life? I said, that's easy. Hope. I said, because this man had none before.
You were broken, yeah.
Back
in those days.
I said, I was 29 years old, accomplished every single thing I accomplished to go out to when I was out of high school. Yeah. Everything on the original list was scratched off.
Oh, and you were out.
And I was thinking I was playing the next round.
Right.
But all that stuff was great, right? But I was empty because I had walked away from Christ. I didn't consciously do it. It was just the way I was living. And the way I was living was leading me to dark places. Yeah. And in my darkest hour, he reached out to me in a profound way. in a nightclub at a rock show in 2003. And I would like to say I was like the guy that everything changed overnight. It took me a few years. Yeah. But it wasn't like, hey, Chester, you're an idiot, you know better. It was like, hey, son, come here, let me help you. And
it's like that grace and mercy.
Yeah, man. And so when we adopted our daughter from China 17 years ago now, which is mind-boggling in its own right, it's been that long.
I can remember when she was still a young girl.
Yeah, and when I saw him through the filter of her, there was no retreat, no surrender moment, because she meant nothing to the world.
In her native land,
she meant zero.
Because she was a female.
She was a female, and she was so she meant nothing to her world, and the world in general doesn't care anyway. Look, so like American culture, the best we have to offer, the best is this: if you can sing well, if you can bounce a ball, hit a ball, run with a ball,
anything with the ball.
Anything with the ball thing's very important. If you're famous, what about the rest of us? And then worse than that, those people who have that skill set, the moment they get in that car wreck and they're the most promising quarterback, we throw them on the trash heap. But he said, come all unto me who are burdened, I'll give you rest. And when I saw that when he brought me and Lisa together, she's a year and a half older and went to a different school.
Yes.
And
I remember the story vaguely.
Yeah, I see a cute. We were out doing what red-blooded American males used to do quite frankly, which is look for females.
Actually go and look. Like we were on the
consciously
search. Not like open up an app. Like we really searched.
I would have liked to have had an app back then, but we didn't.
No.
We didn't have an app.
I would have gotten even more trouble.
I would have been in way more trouble. But that's why I said I probably would like to have an app back then. But
wouldn't it be nice?
To get in trouble.
Yeah.
But I saw this cute blonde girl hang out sitting from a car one night, and I'm like, pull her over.
Woo!
And I pull her over, and it's Lisa. We were dating 6 months, and I asked her one day, I said, hey, I'm not thinking about getting married or anything, but if we ever do, I got one thing I have to do.
You're just kind of bringing, that
I said, I want to adopt a baby girl from China.
Oh my gosh. That was your idea first.
She goes, me too.
Oh my gosh.
We have both seen the same 2020 special about abandonment of little girls. Now, when Jeremiah 29:11, and he's telling Jeremiah, I know the plans I have for you, plans for good and not of evil. And that's parallel to us. I'm going, that was divine. And then when I held the girl in my arms the first time, so when I saw that Christ made all that happen to get us to her, I was like, there's a beauty I can't unsee.
And y'all actually flew over to China to get her. But the thing is more powerful than that is the spiritual aspect of this. Like manifest destiny. Like this was meant to happen.
Well,
and I think that's really deep.
It was like she couldn't walk, she couldn't talk, she was healed, stood up and walked. She hadn't shut up since then.
Yeah, I know, she's very
I'm like, Lord, can we shut back the talking about 20%, please?
Just turn the talking down.
Yeah, just a little bit. 20% on talking. But so
she's excited. Like
about everything.
She loves life. Like every time I see her and you on Facebook with pictures or whatever, like I'm just like, oh my gosh, like this guy is.
Yeah, she loves life, man. And
she's so happy.
Yeah. And so when I saw him through that was my no retreat, no surrender moment.
Kind of burn the boats behind you. I'm not going back.
There's no going back. I can't.
There's sometimes we come to those kind of pinnacle moments in our life.
I get pissed off at him.
Sure.
But I don't like the way he runs the show sometimes. Yeah. But he didn't. You don't have to ask.
We didn't ask permission on how.
Exactly. But and I'll tell you. Sometimes I'm hesitant to tell stories because I'm trying not to draw attention to me. But I have to tell these experiences because I'm in them, and that's the conundrum. So,
remember back in the Texas Fishing Game days when we had Camo Conundrum? That was one of the things that, what's her name, came up with the newsletter that time. Yeah. And nobody knows what a conundrum is. You know what I'm saying? Like, that was the kind of joke of that. All right.
Camo Conundrum.
All right, conundrum. So I had to just interject conundrum because
I forgot about that.
Oh, yeah, that was great. All right, go ahead.
So I'm at this facility that we used to go to every month and bring animals and do work with kids. And I go in and there's a little boy there. And there's about 6 or 7 kids. And he has the worst third-degree burns I've ever seen in my life. I'm talking like Freddy Krueger level. And it was, I did the little presentation and I always let them meet the animals at the end. And I brought my ferret around and I always ask him how each individual, how can I pray for you? And I prayed for him. And I got to him, he told me his name. And but he wouldn't look me in the eye. So I let the parrot love on. I said, man, you're awesome. Good to meet you, buddy. And then at that place, a kid might be there a week. They might be there 3 months. It couldn't stay longer than 3 months. It was like a place they could stay a safe house space until they get connected to a foster home.
So it's kind of like just an intermediary.
Yeah, a safe house for a foster home. Basically, that kind of place. And I go back the next month, he's there. So I walk past every kid in the room and go right to him. And I said, hey, buddy, man. Hey, I told him his name. How you doing? His name was Logan. I said, Logan, how you doing? And he goes, you remember my name? He was like impressed. I remember his name. He's like, yeah, you're a cool kid. I said, plus I kind of cheated. He goes, what do you mean? I said, one of my favorite superheroes has your name. And he goes, who? I said, Wolverine, dude. He's like, oh my God, he forgot about that. He's all excited. And then he tells me, you know, my favorite superhero is Mr. Chester. I said, I don't know, man, tell me. He goes, it's Captain America. And I love to have a shield like Captain America and fight the bad guys. I said, Captain America is awesome. So my favorite Marvel movie is Captain America, the Winter Soldier and all this stuff, And then he goes, who's your favorite? I said, can you keep a secret?
Oh.
I said, yeah. I said, the Hulk.
Yeah.
I said,
I knew that.
He goes, why the Hulk? I said, one time in my life, I want the bad guys to push me in a corner. One time. And I want to look at him.
I forgot you said this. Yeah.
I want to look at him and say, don't make me angry. You wouldn't like me when I'm angry. And freaking crush him into a pile of nothing. And he looks at me.
Hulk smash.
He smiles. Now, I don't know if you've ever seen the first Avengers movie. But there's a bunch of great lines in it. But the greatest line that everybody remembers who really saw it was the Hulk. So all hell's breaking loose. All the space invaders are coming, and New York City's in rubble. And even Thor, with all his mighty powers, not making that much of a dent. Hulk's nowhere to be found. All of a sudden, Bruce Banner, not the Hulk, Bruce rides up on a moped.
Yeah.
And he gets out, and he's like walking toward this stuff, and like Black Widow's like, it'd be a good time to get angry. And he says this very powerful line. Logan looks me in the eye and goes, that's your secret, huh? You're always angry. And I said, I teared up. I said, you know me better than most people do, and I've known you a month.
Oh my gosh. He was so introspective on you.
I said, you know me. I said, I am angry. You know what I'm angry at? I'm angry that there has to be a place like this. Yeah. I'm glad there is a place like this in the current world.
But in
a perfect world. And there will be one day. That there's not this. So that was powerful for me, man. And that little boy, I'll never forget him.
Wow.
And he saw me better than anybody's seen me in a long time. And he held my hand on the way out and told me stuff to pray for this time. I want to come home with me.
Like he was kind of opening up.
Oh, yeah, big time.
And really because y'all shared that common ground.
Yeah, man.
About DC, DC, Marvel, whatever.
And when I was Marvel, do not.
Well, I'm just saying DC DC or Marvel.
I'm a Marvel guy. I don't call it DC. I'm just messing with you, dude. But so I'm walking out with him, and then like the next day, a friend of mine was doing like a Jeep event. They brought Jeeps there for the kids, and so I went to 3 different Walmarts looking for a Captain America shield or something. I couldn't find
something cool like that. Yeah.
But I sent him a Hulk figure. Never saw him again. And that kid haunts me in a good way. Like
he's a reminder, like his memories are.
I have a Captain America figure on my desk.
Oh, to remind you.
They were closing out a Big Lots store, and they had a Captain America, and I bought that. I said,
"That was for you."
That's going to remind you exactly. That's going to remind me of that kid. That's going to keep me on track because I'm going to think about that kid every day, and I'm going to remember that drag my sorry carcass up to do the things that sometimes I am drained and dead, tired, and don't want to go do.
Yeah.
Like, it's funny. People are like, your ministry work is wonderful. I would love to go do that. I said, okay. I said, what do you think we do?
Yeah.
And I said, what do you think? Well, you take animals and you show kids. I said, can you add the 2 hours a day of animal care to that? Can you add no staff? Can you add no salary? That's the beginning. And I said, can you add funerals of children?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Can you add hospital visits? Can you add knowing that a sister, older sister, pimped out her little sister?
Yeah.
Can you hear these stories? And then can you be there with a smile on your face? Mm-hmm. And until then, no thank you.
Yeah.
And most people that support us really get it. They understand it. But it's those people, there are always those people that are like, hey, I want to be a part of this. And then they're like, as soon as there's any resistance, they're out of there.
Yeah, they're fair weather fans.
There have been many times I went, screw this. I don't need it. And I don't need it, but I can't do it. I just can't, I always try to be honest about that, man, because I think some people think that people who keep going are just bulletproof.
We're not.
I'm not bulletproof at all, but I have just a resolve that the Lord put in me to keep doing. I call myself like a pit bull.
You grab a hold of that pig's ear and you can't
grab
let
a
go.
hold and I just keep going.
Yeah. You need a brake bar to get your, what they do with the jaws of pit bulls?
Yeah, I got a whole pit bull.
Argentinian dogos are my favorite hounds.
They're pretty intense, man. They're like a pit bull with steroids or something,
It is, but they have a heart of gold. Body of steel, heart of gold. I'm just saying, if I ever own a dog.
They were made to attack jaguars. So
Jaguar.
Jaguars. Can you imagine, think about this. You're the dogs, and the dog's essence is being put in, and you're like in the assembly line of dogs. All right.
So we're talking heavenly things.
Yeah,
right
you're like the assembly, assembly line of dogs.
The dog assembler.
And here's a little Yorkie. All right, and the Yorkie's going to go out. Yorkie's going to live with a little boy and little girl in a nice home in suburbia. And then here's little Fifi the poodle.
Yep.
Okay, and Fifi's being sent to some rich
We're
woman.
talking teacup.
Yeah,
real small.
Little
real
Fifi
small,
has been sent out to go live with some rich woman, and she's going to pamper it and buy it a doghouse the size of her own home.
And then leave the will to her.
The will of the dog. I mean, that's
entire
great. And then you're like, the dogo, and you're like, you're going to be in a dogo Argentino, and what are you going to do? Hunt jaguars. It's like
the Rhodesian Ridgeback.
Hunt lions.
Hunt lions, exactly.
Yeah.
That's what that dog was bred for. I didn't realize it was jaguars.
Originally it was jags, yeah.
I didn't know that.
Or you could be a feeler brasilial and hunt people, but that's another thing.
The first time I hunted with one, really I've hunted with them over the years off and on.
I never hunted with one, but I've met a few.
They're just tough, but they don't have temperament issues like a possibly a Staffordshire Terrier or Pit Bull, is known to have.
Dude, I hunted hogs one time with a guy who had a pit he was terrified of. He was scared of his own.
He was scared of his own dog.
He was scared of his own catch dog. So
that's pretty bad.
Dude, this brother opens up this cage. I was 22 years old, and he's jumping back at this dog, and I'm like, dear God. And so, and it was one of these 100-pound ones.
Is this the dog that's in the Sandlot? You know what I'm talking about? Close to that dog? Because the dog is larger than life. It's this dog.
It's probably a 90, 100-pound pit.
I love the
whatever
Sandlot.
it was crossed
That's
with
my
or whatever.
favorite movie.
And he gets this sucker out and he has it on a chain. It's too regular.
Holy smokes.
And we're going out and the bay dogs.
And this dog's charging, right?
So he has the bay dogs out,
running loose.
And we're on a high fence ranch. He had too many pigs. They're trying to get rid of them, And down in South Texas. And I'm ahead of everybody. And the bay dogs start up. And I can hear them on this little draw. And I'm like,
they're not all bayed at 5 different places at least. I've had that happen.
They're bayed up. And I'm like, and all of a sudden, this dude cuts the dog loose.
Oh, no.
And I'm between the two. And I'm like, dear Lord, don't let it think that I'm a hog, And so it's kind of this would be a good way to sort of wrap a few things up here. So this pit bull that it wasn't your friendly pit lap pit.
No.
This was probably fed gunpowder or something back in the day. This was not a friendly animal. It shoots past me.
African, brown, where they
it
make
shoots past me and goes in there. And I'm noticing already, I'm like, these dogs are in tight quarters, beta. Why am I not hearing squealing or grunting? What's going on?
Uh-huh.
It gets down in there and I hear thwack, thwack, and I hear a dog growling, but I don't hear a pig. And a catch dog, it's crazy if a catch dog grabs him.
Oh, yeah.
So I run down in there. And
yeah, it's a squeal nation.
This pit bull with a broken jaw at this point has its freaking jaws over about a 30-inch aoudad.
Oh, my goodness. You saw this.
I saw it my own
You
eyes.
saw this, well.
I was 5
the most
yards.
reliable news journalist source I know.
I was 5 yards from this when I walked in that little draw. And those other the bay dogs, they don't blame me, Jack.
Yeah, they were just like, I didn't chase down.
And he had, and that jaw, that one side of the jaw was already swollen. It was bleeding, but he had it on the side of the face. And the guy came down there, Chester, get him off. I said, blank you. I said, your dog, your problem, brother. And I said,
it ain't my dog problem.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
I am not doing that. So they got in there and they eventually got the pit off of the aoudad, and the aoudad ran off. But
Poor Ram, yeah, that's
dude. But I heard the thwack, 2 thwacks. That aoudad whacked that pit.
I was about to say that it like hit him somehow. Like,
Dude, the jaw was all like swollen. The thwack I heard undoubtedly was hit him in the head.
I was about to say, was the ram hitting the dog, or like was the dog like holding on for dear life and the ram was slapping it against the tree?
I guarantee what I heard, because it was such a on this one side.
Oh, okay.
That I guarantee I heard that bone crunching when the aoudad hit it.
Gosh.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah. So it was a wild situation. And it was absolutely insane. Like, maybe it's a new trend, like aoudad dogs.
I don't know. After the conversation I had with I had no idea. We're talking like 400 aoudad, like I'm not sorry, 400 bighorn sheep, and then you've got all these like 2,000 aoudad.
Hell, there's probably 400 aoudad on one fairly small high fence ranch in the hill country somewhere.
No, you're right.
That you can't.
And
see.
they reproduce like kittens
That's
and
the
rabbits.
problem.
Roland was laughing. I was just like, man, that they do. I said they're like kittens.
They put 20 of them on, and then 10 years later, there's 500 of them, or whatever. But anyway, man, it's
late. Hey, thanks.
It's late.
How do we find more about what Chester's up to these days?
Holy smokes, we're gonna figure it out. See, the Chester Moore on Instagram.
Yep.
At the Chester Moore. Great place to find out what's going on. Yep. Highercalling.net is my blog. Mm-hmm. Good blog. And you can find links to Dark Outdoors, the podcast there, which is on all platforms, and Higher Calling Wildlife, and catch all of my work in Texas Fishing Game and every issue in the Texas Fishing Game e-newsletter. And this will actually be the first podcast that I air of the series that I'll start, bouncing out from this event that we had, the Hunt Fish podcast summit. But the cool thing is that Chester and I are once again back together on a podcast, but also the fact that it has been a few years, and I just love catching up with you, but also the fact that I want to have you on again, of course. But sure, man.
I think it's like I have a feature, or kind of a mini feature in the March issue of Texas Fishing Game, and I'm back at it after 5 years of a hiatus, and it feels good.
It's crazy how things work out, but it's been a great seeing this weekend. Yeah, thanks, great event Derek York put together here at the Hunt Fish Podcast Summit.
So his podcast, the Impact Podcast,
Impact Outdoors
podcast, and really just. This has been an incredible, and learned so much, and so much will be coming to you as this show progresses with just interviews I've had this week and everything. It's just been incredible. I know it has been for you too. So.
That brings back a lot of old memories, and I'm so grateful to have the opportunity to share Chester Moore with you on this show, and just kick things off again, man. I don't know if this is going to be a weekly thing. I have a lot of production stuff that I do for, the other people I miss, or that I mentioned earlier, not missed. Larry Wassoon, he was there at this event, and then at the Texas Outdoor Writers Association event. Him and I both spoke. I spoke twice on social media. And then, how to kind of manage social media as a media creator. So if you're interested in that, just hit me up. I've got the video and recording from that. And then also, whatever else you want to hit up of mine, dustinsprojects.com. That's dustinsprojects.com. And then businesswithdustin.com if you would like to work with me on a professional level or just do consulting. Hey, what's going on here? those kind of things. So like I say, I'm here to help you. Any questions you have, please email me at dustin@dustinsprojects.com. That's dustin@dustinsprojects.com. Business email is dustin@businesswithdustin.com. That's dustin@businesswithdustin.com. What the heck? Send me a text message if you want to. I respond to most all my text messages unless they're spam. If you have any questions about the outdoors, about how to set up your crossbow, how to adjust it, bow fishing, hunting, especially here in Texas, but also beyond. If you're looking for an outfitter for Africa, if you're looking for an outfitter for anywhere in the United States and then beyond, New Zealand, if you want to go hunt you a red stag. Anything like that. I've got connections within the industry of people that I've interviewed in the past, and also the people that I've just known over the years, and some clients of mine as well. One particular one, King of Eights Outfitters, Blake Marshall. I've had him on the show a number of times in the past. I'll have him back on soon. And just check out my other podcast. If you want any kind of personal growth, it's a really good show called The Empowered Life. The Empowered Life. Not The Empowered Wife, because that's another show. That comes up first when you type in The Empowered. So it's The Empowered Life. That's been on for a while, I guess. But The Empowered Life, Life, podcast with Dustin should bring up The Empowered Life with Dustin Von Warnke, or just go visit dustinspodcast.com. You can pull the RSS feed from there for your podcast player, or subscribe directly on Podbean. Download that app. Also going to be on Carbon TV as well. So if you're a Carbon TV person, for the outdoor media stuff, they've got a podcast section. This will be on there. And then soon, I keep on saying this, I've said this for like 9 months, I finally got approved for being on Carbon TV. As far as our TV show Hogger Boys, which I said earlier in the episode, was Mac and Prowler. Before that, it was Coyote Tales. So I had it kind of as started as Hunters of the Hunters, okay, Hunting the Hunters, which is predator hunting TV show, and then I moved forward with everything after that. We went to Coyote Tales, Tales. Coyote Tales was kind of the next iteration, and then we just did Mac and Prowler Hunting Adventures, and then I made it more of a variety show. It's going to be a kind of a mismatch of content that you're going to love, and that is called Hogger Boys, like HOGGERS boys.com, not with a Z or anything like that, nothing silly. Just hoggerboys.com is the hub for that, and then that will be on Carbon TV as soon as I can get my first production out the window here. Alright, so again, you know how to contact me. Text me. Feel free to text me if you have any questions. I love hearing from all of you guys out there in podcast land who listen to the show and who have stayed with me, over the years. I released these 2 shows, prior to this one that was interview with Larry Wassoon, and then interview with Luke Clayton. 2 interviews with Luke Clayton that I did on segments of his radio show, which I also produced both. And those are available at on this podcast in the serial if you download and subscribe. Tell a friend. I just love all you guys. I just want you guys to have the best of the outdoors. I want you to have the best experiences. I want you to be safe. I want you to be cognizant. I want you to invest in the youth of this future. I want you to have a conservation mindset, okay? That is my goals for this show. That's kind of the Trojan horse here, okay? I want you to become the best version of yourself through the outdoors. The outdoors has been so therapeutic and healing for me for a number of years, and really at this event that I interviewed Chester that you just heard, I fell in love again with Wild's Cheap, with conservation, with the Pittman Robertson Act that funds so many things that we do as hunters. Hunters are the ones carrying the mail on that deal. And that show I told you about, the film I told you about, I'll remind you again, it's on my link tree. It's called Resilience in the Rocks. It's by the Texas Bighorn Society. It's on their YouTube channel, but I have a link directly on my link tree. Incredible film about the translocation from the Elephant Mountain Range, I believe in Alpine, somewhere out in West Texas, to the Trans-Pecos region here in Texas, and then the conservation efforts where everybody, these non-governmental organizations such as Dallas Safari Club, SCI, Safari Club International, who owns Texas Trophy Hunters now, by the way. A lot of things have happened since I've been back, and I also do work with Texas Wildlife Association. I do some contract webmaster work and that kind of stuff, and anyway, but like I said, a lot of conservation groups, non-governmental agencies that put in the effort to make this work. Because quite honestly, the state of Texas and Texas Parks and Wildlife could not afford to do that without the donations and sponsoring of this program. And you'll see in this film that was first aired before it ever released at this film festival we did at the Hunt Fish podcast, sponsored by Derek York and a number of other organizations, but kind of organized by Derek York, a good friend of mine. He's been on this show before too, with Impact Outdoors, his podcast called Impact Outdoors Podcast. And the Hunt Fish podcast, you can find some of the roundtable and group discussions about wallet sheep and that kind of stuff on YouTube under at Hunt Fish Podcast, I believe is what the handle is. And then I've got some awesome interviews coming for you guys. So stay tuned. Thank you guys so much for watching, reading, and listening. Again, if you want to check out the March issue, if you can find it, or you can find it online, I wrote an article about bow fishing and obscure bow fishing tactics. You'll like that for any of you guys that like the arrow and the string out there on the water with the fish. But like I say, we call that fishing, even though it is more bow hunting, kind of mixed with kind of spot and stalk hunting and that kind of stuff. I want to have Marty McIntyre back on this podcast. Another one of my clients, David Evans, runs a guide service as well as Marty, running GarQuest, which I've rebuilt that website to be garquestbowfishing.com. If you're interested in Central Texas, or really he does alligator gar trips and everything else down in South Texas, and fishes up in North Texas. There's another guy that he works with up there. It's kind of a co-guide of his from time to time. But anyway, give me a call, send me a text, whatever. Send me a text first, because I get so many phone calls. And just let me know who you are and who you want me to hook you up with. If you're looking for some affordable hunting in the fall, I've got a ranch. One of my clients I'm working with, I'm rebuilding her website as we speak. It's between Fredericksburg and Llano. And I just delivered a whole bunch of stuff from when I'm moving out of storage unit, minimizing my outdoor equipment, okay? Because I've collected so much over the years that I've been sent to write articles for and do videos on and that kind of stuff. And so I'm consolidating all that, giving a lot of it away, and selling whatever I can that has a lot of value and just minimizing. I live out in the country now. I moved from Leander back to Temple. During the period of divorce in 2022, 2023, that era, I lived with some family, and then I moved to my own little place. I wanted to live tiny. I wanted to live out in the country, and by goodness, I got both. I've got a 2-bedroom travel trailer. My son calls it a tiny home condo. He has his own room with the door on it. I have my own room. It's a 32-foot bumper pull, and I love it. I know I live in a camper. I don't care. I don't fit in a box. I'm a Sigma male, at least in part. And so basically the lone wolf, if you will. I love it, living independently. First time I've ever lived alone in my life, and I love the solitude out here in the country, being woken up by the roosters. Any of you guys that live out of the city limits understand what I mean. The other day, though, I just got done with a turkey hunting, and that'll be another episode that I release soon. My son talking about our turkey hunting adventures. And I was packing my stuff away from turkey hunting this spring for the spring season. This back in April, and I heard a coyote yowl so close. It was so scary. Like, it was within peeing distance, you know what I'm saying? Like, I could hear him behind the unit behind my place, or in front of my place, and I was like, I grabbed my shotgun and went right. I've kind of become the sheepdog, with everything that I've gone through the last couple of years. I've kind of become the sheepdog for the weak, the defenseless, the helpless, and a lot of that are animals, because they can't, our wildlife cannot speak for themselves. We have to advocate for those things, which is why I'm so big about conservation, and kind of relit my fire with conservation with this summit that I went to, this podcast summit. But I went through and just kind of educated that coyote that he's not going to eat any sheep or chickens in this area. Because those chickens and sheep I'm kind of fond of those, okay? They're not just farm animals to me. I go feed the animals. I can't tell you whatever wildlife you have, and I'm just talking about filling your deer feeders, okay? Feed the wildlife, feed the animals. I believe there's a karmic element that we forget so many times in our world and society today of, if we feed the animals, it's almost like good karma. If you leave litter and trash out in the woods or on the street or whatever for somebody to pick up, even if you're at the Sonic, and don't want to take your trash with you, take your trash with you and dispose of it properly. All right, don't mess with Texas is what we say down here. Everybody's mileage varies on that, but don't litter. Because the thing is, I think there's a karmic element when we leave trash or something that can't normally decompose in nature, and somebody has to come along and clean that up, or it just stays there forever. Okay. Don't let that be your legacy, and work on leaving an outdoor legacy. That's something I speak about a lot at places I'm invited to. leave an outdoor legacy. Get a kid out in the woods. My son, of course, is my main one but I also mentor some other kids, some of his friends and that kind of stuff every once in a while. And my son is to the point where he's even teaching his friends about gun safety, because I taught him since he was old enough to hold a gun, about what this is a tool, this is not a toy, those kind of things. So instilling in the young ones in your life, your grandkids, your children, because this is going to affect your children's children. Okay. Like Solomon says in Ecclesiastes and Proverbs, blessing your children's children, the unborn generations that aren't even here. That's one reason why I have this podcast, because long after I'm gone, these things will still be live, most likely. I'm going to keep this subscription up for the rest of my life and after. I want you to refer back to this and sprinkle some sunshine on some wildlife in the world. Go feed some animals. If you got some chickens around you like I do, go feed them some chicken food, whatever, some hen scratch or whatever. Feeding animals is kind of a spiritual karma for me. I connect so much with the outdoors and God's creations with the spiritual aspects of what we do in the outdoors. And I just encourage you to do the same. I think you'll find a lot of peace in giving back to the animals that, and just feed. I don't just mean feeding your dog at your house, but feed somebody else's dog. That's what I do out here. I'm kind of like the grandparents to the pets. I get to take care of them and have fun, pet them, and all that stuff. But then when it's time to go to the vet, that's somebody else's problem. I'm kind of like the grandkids, the grandparents to get the grandkids back when it's time to, to do all the obligations. But anyway, I'm back. I'm happy. I'm just happy to be back with you guys and have the opportunity to reconnect with some of you guys. So thank you again, as I said before, for watching, reading, and listening. Have an awesome day in the outdoors. God bless you, and we'll see you next time.